underlined. But if you're interested, you may come up and look through and read the article, or whatever. I'm not even sure where it's at. But it's in here with Gordon's pretty face on the cover. And I have 2 copies, but they are the original depositions written by John Hugh and his actions speaking about the burning of the bridge, and Robert Green and what his regulations of what he did with burning the bridge. So I have them if you want to read them. You can find copies of the Columbia Historical Society, so here you go. If you want your own, you can go there and get them. I forgot to mention, I even like them right there.
I take the entire Gettysburg campaign because it is a month long, and I break it down into 3 separate lectures. Because that would turn into a very long lecture, and I would get bored, and I would never make it to Gettysburg. So here we are. We have made it. It is July 1st. How did we end up here? Does anybody know? Yes, the Confederate soldiers were trying to cross the bridge. Why? Yes. Yes, they wanted Harrisburg. They wanted Lancaster. They wanted Philadelphia. They wanted DC. Yeah, they were greedy. In a nutshell, they were greedy. But that did not happen. Spoiler alert, I'm sorry, you missed the first 2, that didn't happen. So here we are. We're at Gettysburg. Why Gettysburg? By accident. It is the biggest oops in American history. Oops. Yes, that's how I describe it. It's the oops. It was a battle that was never meant to be. Lee was recalling his 2nd Corps from Harrisburg and Wrightsville. Gettysburg, if you go to the center, the town square, and you just go around in a circle, there are 10 roads that lead in and out of Gettysburg. It is prime real estate to bring in 77,000 soldiers. You can move them, you have their wagon trains and everything. You can get them in, you can get them out. Only that's not exactly what happened. So we're gonna rewind just a tad. Starting at the beginning of June, everything was happening in Virginia. Everything was below the Mason-Dixon line, below Maryland. And General Lee decided he wanted a battle on northern soil to relieve the South of its pressure. Virginia has nothing to offer anybody anymore. And he thought he could reap the benefits of the North. He could refuel his army with food, he could recloak them, he could get the much needed ammunition and weapons that he needs. Because down in Vicksburg, where he was getting them, is being pressured by Ulysses S. Grant. Okay? That's a discussion for July 12th, if anybody is interested. We're not talking about that today. So, Lee's like, I gotta do something. And he's like, I tried once, and I failed. He got stopped at Antietam. He's like, let's try again. And he takes the same route, the Gaul. Yeah, you'd think we'd learn. Apparently we don't. He takes the Blue Ridge Mountains through the Shenandoah, out through West Virginia, up into Maryland, and into Pennsylvania. Chambersburg is where he enters, and he splits his 2nd Corps, and they fail. So now they have to come back. Richard Ewell's 2 divisions that came from Harrisburg will get at Gettysburg before Early's division that was coming from Wrightsville. They'll get a little more rest, whereas Gordon won't. But the Army of the Potomac after they finally realized that he was no longer in Virginia, it says, oh God, we lost him again. And they have to go hunting for him, only to get word that he is at Pennsylvania. And they have to hightail it. And when I mean hightail it, they have to take about 98 to 100,000 troops, 7 corps in total, and get them north as fast as possible. Their plan was never Gettysburg. Does anybody know why the Union Army was even in Gettysburg in the vicinity to begin with? Who does it? Who is the first name that we are introduced to? John Buford. Yeah, that man. Yes. It all starts because of him. And the plan for Pipe Creek is out the wayside, all because of one cavalry officer. So we're going to dive into 3 days of, there's children present, devastation. It's not the word I wanted to use. There are children, we gotta keep it PG, people. All right, like any other of my lectures, we gotta introduce our starring characters. These are the 2 commanding generals of the armies. We all know the dashingly good one here on the right, Robert E. Lee, who's commanding the Army of Northern Virginia. And on the left, we have the old snapping turtle. I mean, that snapping turtle, it mirrors. Oh. George Gordon Meade, he is the commander of the Army of the Potomac. He only becomes commander in the early stages of June. He was 5th Corps commander, he was a major general. And now he's leading the entire army. First time as a general leading an army into battle. We're going to see how he fares. Lee's been doing this since 1862. He has come longer than he's done. He's been doing really well for himself. We're going to see how he compares. And I asked this question. I joked a little bit. Why Gettysburg? Everyone gives me all kinds of different things. You guys actually were the best, so congratulations, guys. As you can see what I mean when I say all these roads are what they're going to utilize in and out of Gettysburg. Now, for the Southern Army, what direction do they come into town? Yes, north. And the Northern Army, what direction do they come in from? Yes. So Lee's army is coming this way. The Northern Army is coming from the Evansburg Road, the Tawnytown Road, and York Road into Gettysburg. So, yes, and they meet in town. Now, we're going to get right into it. July 1st. These are the people we'll be talking about. Lieutenant General A.P. Hill, he's 3rd Corps Commander. General Henry Heath, he is the Division Commander under A.P. Hill, Army Northern Virginia. And Lieutenant General Richard Ewell, he is 2nd Corps Commander. He just came from Harrisburg. Those are what we're dealing with on the Confederate side. On the northern side, on the Federals, we got Major General John Reynolds, 1st Corps Army Commander. Who knows of John Reynolds? Who knows of John Reynolds? Everybody should raise your hands. Yes. Lancaster boy. Lancaster. He is buried in, so if you ever know where the General Hospital is, the cemetery that's there in front, that's the old part of the cemetery. If you make a giant circle all the way around, you may access that, and he is buried not far into the cemetery. Major General Oliver Howard, 11th Corps Commander for the Army of the Potomac, and John Buford, Cavalry Division Commander. Those are our characters for July 1st. Now, July 1st. I love battle maps. They will tell the story better than I can ever tell it. Now I will do my best, okay? If you cannot see, please tell me it is. So everything that happens happens on July 1st happens in a very small part of Gettysburg, okay? Out here if you go out to the western part of town, you have McPherson's Ridge, and then you have out where the internal flame is. If I mention words that nobody knows what I'm talking about. So the internal flame, that is where we are talking about. Okay, where Reynolds dies, where that monument is, this monument, all the way out to where the internal flame is. That's the ground we're covering. Anybody ever been to Gettysburg? You all know what I'm talking about? Okay, good. Next year, we'll be leading tours in Gettysburg by the time you're done today. Okay, I'll come on your tour next time. So Buford rides that. He gets there about June 30th. And it's later in the evening. I'm not going to say it's twilight. It's not midnight. It's not 1 o'clock. It's 6, 7. It's getting dusk out. And he sees dirt clouds. Now, when it's dry and you have a lot of people walking on dirt roads, what happens? What do you pick up? Dirt, dust. So he is knowing that there are troops in front of him, but he doesn't know how many. He doesn't know who it is. And he's by himself. He has his cavalry force. That's it. All the while, when they get a little closer, it is Pettigrew's brigade. That's it. It's just a brigade of Confederates under Henry Meade. And they stop because they see the cavalry. When you see cavalry, you know troops. Infantry is not far behind. Okay? The cavalry is like a big flag that says, hey, we have infantry with us. Only the infantry is still about 10 miles away. So he stops, and he sees Buford. And Pettigrew, being the nice North Carolinian that he is, he waves to him. He's like, hey! And he turns his army around, and he walks back. Why? Does anybody know why?
General Lee says do not engage.
General Lee tells his troops, under no circumstances are you allowed to engage in a battle. Why would he tell his troops that?
He has no idea what's out there.
He has no idea who's out there, but his entire army is not yet together. Remember, he split his army. He made a very daring move, and it cost him. Now he has to play catch up. He has to play catch up with the army of the Potomac. But he's not sure where they're at either. So he moves, he leaves, he goes back out, and he tells A.P. Hill, there are federal cavalry on the ridge in front of us. A.P. Hill goes, it's probably just militia with a bunch of like shotguns, or we'll drive them off, don't worry about it. Now what does A.P. Hill go into town for? Shoes. Do you actually believe he went in for shoes? No. Why? Because the Confederates were already ransacked Gettysburg back earlier in June, when Ewell sent Early's division through Gettysburg to come to Wrightsville and Columbia. They already ransacked the town. There's nothing left. So that whole myth of going for shoes was a lie, because he started an engagement that he couldn't figure his way out of. So he goes, well, we were just going for shoes. That was his way of saving his butt. Happens. I mean, I would lie to get myself out of that one too. So he starts into town, and he sends in his division under Harry Heath. Buford has to quickly, on July 1st, set up a defensive position. He has to hold the high ground. In war, in battle, it doesn't matter what war it is. It doesn't matter where you're fighting, whether it's Gettysburg or in Europe during World War II or today. If you can hold the high ground, You have an advantage over your enemy. They have to trek up a whatever degree slope it is, and it wears them down. Because 9 times out of 10, they're going to retreat back down that. And 9 times out of 10, they go back down, and then they have to go back up the same steps that they just retreated down from. It wears them down. So Buford at all costs has to hold Cemetery Ridge. It is the high ground. Pennsylvania is made up of what? Rolling hills. If you're not from Pennsylvania, you do not know that. But if you look out, you can look out the window, it goes up and then it goes down. It goes up and it goes down. Same for 50 miles that way, people. They don't realize that, but Buford does. He has to hold Cemetery Ridge until the army can get there. The closest troops to him, John Reynolds. He's leading the whole entire left wing of the Army of the Potomac. Consists of 1st Corps, his corps, 11th Corps under Oliver Howard, and 3rd Corps under Dan Sickles. Thank you for laughing. I'm trying to be professional. But coming at him right now is the entire 3rd Corps of A.P. Hill. Buford only has roughly 2,500 cavalry soldiers. And he has to take from McPherson's Ridge, where Reynolds' death monument is, and go the whole way over to the internal flame with 2,500 cavalry soldiers. Now, when I say cavalry, you're expecting soldiers on horseback, right? That's very true. They do ride horseback, but Buford does something very interesting with his cavalry. Does anybody know what tactic he trained his cavalry in? Go ahead.
Okay. They really don't fight down.
Yeah. Yeah, they can fight dismounted, and that makes them look like what? Infantry. And they have a new rifle. If they could afford it, the soldiers themselves, because the military did not supply it, the soldier had to buy it. They now had a rifle that could shoot more than one bullet. It's easier to kill a lot more Confederates than it's like 9 steps, takes a minute, shoot 1 bullet. The Confederates don't have that, okay? So they're still in delay with their weapons. But Buford's cavalry, more of them have this rifle than anybody else. So A.P. Hill sends his division underneath it, and they do. They hit Buford very, very hard, to the point that he knocks them back. They were all the way out past Herb's Woods, out past McPherson's Ridge. And he moves them back. He pushes them back right along that edge. And they stand. And then they send in Joe Davis. Does anybody know who Joe Davis is? In the Civil War, does the name Davis ring the bell to anybody? The last name?
Jefferson.
Jefferson Davis. It would be his nephew. Leads a bunch of Mississippians and 1 regiment of North Carolinians. They didn't know where to put them, so they just put them there. The Chambersburg Road leads up. It splits McPherson's Ridge in half. So whereas Heath will charge this side of Chambersburg Road, Joe Davis now charges this side of Chambersburg Road. So Buford has to take his other brigade under Devon and span them out even further, because now they have another brigade division coming up on them. And he has to put gaps in between his men. He has to reinforce as much as he can. He has to put them all in. And they're taking heavy casualties. And Buford's not sure how much longer he can hold out. And then they see a flag coming through about from the Tawnytown Road area, out this way, out that way. John Reynolds has finally come in. And leading his first corps is a group that the Confederates really, really, really did not want to see. Can anybody guess who they picked especially? I love them. Yes. They would be part of the Iron Brigade. And it is a very fitting name because they don't break. They will fight you into the very last person, or they absolutely have to retreat. So they come in, and Reynolds will disperse them into Herbst Woods, right here, right out here, into Herbst Woods. And they push East Division back. They drive them out, they keep going. And then he brings in more. And all of 3rd Corps will be engaged in the early hours of July 1st. Now, John Reynolds doesn't have his entire Iron Brigade with him. He's missing 1 regiment. They're kind of slow to come up. The 6th Wisconsin. As they come in, they are told to come down here, out here in Seminary Ridge. As they come in, they see Joe Davis as being unopposed. If they break Buford's line, if they break this line out here, and they come in, they can get to the Baltimore Pike and take the Union supply train, take everything they want. The Union Army done. That victory on Northern soil, complete. So, the 6th Wisconsin, under Rufus Dawes, a colonel, not a general, not anything, he is a colonel. He takes his regiment and he storms Joe Davis. And they're running a regiment that consists of roughly 1,000 men. Entire division is on the run. And he's like, I got this. Dawson's like, I got this in the bag. They're already running. This is going to be a very short battle. Only that the Mississippians found a railroad cut. Has anybody ever been to the railroad cut or seen it in Gettysburg? It's very steep. Good protection walls that you can't get hit with a bullet. You're down in the ground. And for every yard that they advance, the 6th Wisconsin advances, they lose 1 man to that railroad cut. And they're running. It's not like they're in battle lines. They're all out running towards that railroad cut. Because if they stay in battle lines, which is like rows of people, they're dead. They're dead before they even get there. So Rufus Dawes says on the double quick means go for it. Run. I don't care who gets there, somebody get there, and we're all behind you. They lose several men. And when I say several, they take 50% casualty rates on 1 regiment. They will successfully take the railroad cut on July 1st. It is the only Union victory on July 1st. Spoiler alert. Sorry. And a colonel cannot demand surrender of a higher officer. Can't do it. Not allowed. What he does, he goes to the commanding officer of that Mississippi regiment and goes, surrender or we kill you. He hands over his sword, his colors, and they take prisoners of war. All of them. And he takes the sword back and he goes, there you go. I captured the Mississippi regiment. A colonel with less than 50% of his regiments left. He takes them. But that's not it. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, everybody, if you have joined me the last 2 lectures, has heard the name General Gordon, okay? He finally makes it all the way back from Wrightsville. He comes in through the Moundsburg Road, this road right here, and he storms in, and he comes down with Buell's Corps, smashing into Union troops that finally get to the battlefield. Can anybody guess out of the troops that I had mentioned earlier, the 11th and the 3rd Corps, which one gets there first? No, the 11th. Yeah, we lost the 3rd Corps, guys. We lost them. They're somewhere. We're not sure where. They don't even know where they're at this point. The 11th Corps gets there, but there's a language barrier. All the soldiers, most of them in the 11th Corps are German-speaking immigrants. Soldiers, but they're German immigrants. And Howard never steps foot in the battlefield. 11th Corps coordinator never steps foot on the battlefield. There's a place in Gettysburg. He stands on the rooftop and he looks out and he goes, that over there, where they're pointing at the internal plane, he goes, that is where you're going to stand. Form your battle lines. That's great. It's great. To a bunch of men that don't understand what you're saying. They don't know where you're pointing. They're not from Gettysburg. They don't know. So to say, go that way. Great. And then when they get out there, there's this knoll. It's a small little knoll. It's not even a hill. It's raised. And Barlow says, he's a division commander. He says, I'm going to take my division out to that knoll. It's high ground. Yeah, so was the ground you were standing on too. So now he had advanced his entire division from everybody else in the 11th Corps. There is a huge gap. So that's like if I took these chairs, I moved them out. This is Barlow, that's the rest of the 11th Corps. There's a nice gap right there. Do you know who's going to see that? Somebody that's really, really angry because he failed on June 28th. Gordon's going to see that. And he's going to exploit it. He's going to tell his men, see that gap? Break it. He's angry. And they do. They send Barlow's division running. They send the 11th Corps running. They were 1st Corps flank out here. Send them running. What happens to these guys? They have no backup on this side. That was their backup. But now they're streaming through town. Do you know what happens when a lot of soldiers go through a very small area? It's like if your sink is clogged and you're trying to get water down it and it just won't go because it's being clogged. That's what the town of Gettysburg was like, a clogged sink, and water's trying to get down. You have nowhere to go. 11th Corps clogs the streets, fighting now ensues in town. Out here, in Baxter and Kohler's brigades, you have a tiny regiment, and I love this regiment, the 11th Pennsylvania. Everybody else runs because there's no more backup for them, and they don't want to die. But the 11th Pennsylvania says, I've been fighting out here. It's not going to happen. I'm going to stand as long as I can. But they have a special soldier with them. Does anybody know who that one special soldier is with the 11th Pennsylvania? She's a dog. Sally Ann. And they have to move back a little bit. They have to move back to reform their battle line. And they meet up with somebody else. Everybody remember the 6th Wisconsin under Rufus Dawes? Yeah, they meet up with Rufus Dawes back here. And Rufus Dawes looks at him and says, if you're gonna stand with us, you're gonna fight. D11's like, that's no problem, we got that. And they do. They're one of the last 2 regiments to have to retreat through town. Out this way. Out here, to East Cemetery Hill. That's where Howard is, that's where he placed his headquarters. And he sees his 11th Corps come running back, and he's like, what's going on? And they're like, the Confederates are chasing us. They have completely overran Seminary Ridge. They've taken the high ground. Battles are now happening all throughout town. Men are hiding in houses, in backyards. There is a soldier from the 24th Michigan, because he didn't know where he was going. He hid in a farm, in a pig feed, and he covered himself 3 days. On July 4th, he came out, like, man, I survived that one. They did, they didn't go there. But they didn't know where to go. They didn't know that back here on East Cemetery Hill, that's where they were regrouping. Nobody was out there to command them. Reynolds was dead. Reynolds was killed. That was the only hope that the Army of the Potomac had. George Gordon Meade, still in Maryland, people. He's in Tawnytown. He doesn't know what's going on. He can hear the artillery. He knows something's happening, but most of his army is still trying to make their way up. He can't leave them because they don't know where they're going. So he sends his one general. He rode a front of his corps, 2nd Corps, Major General Winfield Scott Hancock. He's an Irishman and he's from Philadelphia. Those are 2 things that probably should never be grouped together. But he will come to East Calvary Field and he sees everybody and he goes, what's going on? And they go, we're retreating. We don't know what's going on. And they go, why? He goes, General Lee's army is here. His entire army is here. Hancock, if you look at the monument, his hand is stretched out. He's been waiting since 1861 to fight General Lee. And every other general says, and they retreat. Hancock is now in charge of the Army of the Potomac until George Gordon Meade can get up there. He says, I'm going to have that dance with General Lee. And he forms the most famous defensive position that I have ever seen. The famous fish hook, or the letter J. He will, let me turn this down. I need a clicker. He will start. This is East Cemetery Hill. East Cemetery Hill. He's here. But he sees in back of him is this Culp's Hill. He's like, if I let General Lee have that hill, I'm done for. So he sends Wadsworth. And he goes, Wadsworth, whatever you have left of your troops, take them to Culp's Hill and fortify it. And he goes, okay, come on, 6th Wisconsin, let's go. Because that's all he knows of his 1st Corps is left, is this 6th Wisconsin. That night, they're up on Culp's Hill fortifying it. They're digging trenches. Those trenches are still there today. You can go up to Culp's Hill, go around the tower, start heading down, and on your right-hand side, you'll find the marker to the 6th Wisconsin. Right below it are the trenches. You may walk that. I do. My mom will let me, but. So they fortified it. This entire hill was fortified. And then Hancock says, okay, 11th Corps, because that's all You don't want to do anything? You want to stand here? You don't want to command your troops? You take East Cemetery Hill. And Howard goes, who put you in charge? He goes, George Gordon Meade. Do you want the paper that says I'm in charge? And Howard says, no. He stomps off like a 2-year-old, just hissy fit. And then Hancock places his 2nd Corps, which comes up about midnight. He'll place them here on, right here at the low angle. And then he sends what little troops that are left down here to Little Round Top. Because he knows that hill can't go left undefended either. So he makes this beautiful defensive position with what troops he has. They're slowly coming up. The one corps that should have been there in the wee hours of July 1st, 3rd Corps under Dan Sickles, finally arrives in the wee hours of July 2nd. Blunder number 1 for the Army of the Potomac. Keep track, people. You have a pop quiz coming up. So, out on Cemetery Ridge, when Meade finally gets there, most of the army is coming up. All the 2nd Corps is here. Hancock says, the army's yours. I made this beautiful defensive position. And Meade is apprehensive. He doesn't really want to stand and fight. He really likes his Pike Creek plan. And Hancock says, this is where you want to fight, right here. Again, he's itching. He wants that fight. He wants to take General Lee so bad, but he's not wrong. Gettysburg was prime real estate for the Army of the Potomac, the Union Army. And it's all because of Hancock, a Corps commander of 2nd Corps. This gentleman right here, that dashingly good-looking man. And then Dan Sickles comes up, and he goes, where do you want me? I got the entire 3rd Corps here. Yeah, we're from New York. And he goes, yeah, okay, cool. Go out here, Little Round Top. You are to start your line at the end of Hancock's line and stretch to the bottom of Little Round Top. Don't go up the hill, just stretch to the base of it. Here's that hill. So he does. And then as he's out there, he's looking at me, he's like, well, I can't see what's ahead of me because there's a hill. There's no children. No, still keep PG. No, duh, there's a hill. But he goes, I'm gonna take my corps and I'm gonna move it out to that hill. We're gonna occupy that high ground, a mile. He breaks away from Hancock's line a mile. We thought Barlow was bad on July 1st. This is even worse. And then, on top of that, not only does he create a mile line gap from here to out here, this is all open, he makes a right angle. Does anybody know math? Because I really suck at it. But I know what a right angle is, and I know it's a very bad thing to make with troops. He lines his corps along the Gettysburg Road, and then he angles them back, and they will stop on Devil's Day. Okay? Now come late July 1st, early July 2nd, Longstreet finally comes up, 1st Corps, Army of Virginia. And first off, he tells General Lee, this is a terrible idea, don't fight here. They occupy the high ground. If you haven't taken it by now, you're not taking it. And he says, we'll see about that. And Longstreet goes, I tried to warn you, don't say I didn't, because I did. The next day, because his corps was stuck behind the train wagons of 2nd Corps that was coming down from Harrisburg and from Wrightsville, they're stuck behind those train wagons, and there's a lot of them. Okay? So he has to force march into battle on July 2nd. Longstreet does with his corps, and he's still missing one. He's missing a division. Doing what? I don't know what Pickett's doing, but he's just hanging out back there. Longstreet has a corps of 20,000 soldiers, the biggest corps in the Army of Northern Virginia. If it sounds like I'm a Longstreet fan, you would be correct. He's the best. And I'm not saying that because he's my favorite. He has McLaws's division, and he has Hood's division. I'm going to call him Sam, because that's what they call him, and we have a relationship. If I call Longstreet Pete, no, I'm talking about Longstreet. Okay? You can't study this stuff for 13 years and not form relationships anymore. So he comes in. This is all July 2nd. This is where things really start to ramp up. So here, we got to meet our characters for July 2nd. Hancock, Major General, July 2nd Corps. Dan Sickles, Major General, Army of the Potomac 3rd Corps. And Lawrence Chamberlain, Colonel of the 20th Maine. That's for the Federals. Let's not get our generals and that kind of stuff. Again, we will have a pop quiz. July 2nd from the Confederates, we have John Bell Hood. Division Commander for Longstreet, 1st Corps, Army Northern Virginia. You have James Longstreet, Corps Commander, Army Northern Virginia. And you have General Lafayette McLaws, Division Commander, 1st Corps, Army Northern Virginia. Does anybody see a pattern here? There's only one corps mentioned for the Army of Northern Virginia. That's not a mistake. I did not make a typo. Okay? You have to understand. General Lee's plan, before we go even further, was when Longstreet's 1st Artillery fires around Culp's Hill is to attack Culp's Hill at the same time Longstreet attacks Cemetery Bridge on July 2nd. Okay? That is General Lee's plan. We'll see how well that goes. There's a reason the 2nd Corps is not mentioned. Keep that in mind. So we're going to start July 2nd because a lot happens on July 2nd. July 2nd is the hub of the Battle of Gettysburg. This is the day, really, when you're going to win or lose the Battle of Gettysburg. Doesn't matter what happened on the 1st. Kind of matters what happens on the 3rd, kind of, sort of, but your battle's going to be won on July 2nd. Okay? This is where bloodshed happens. We're going to start with an enchant movement. Does anybody know what an enchant movement is? Cheers. You have a line. You have Longstreet's battle line. Again, don't mind my dog. I didn't know that picture. So he has his battle line, this line. And then this group steps off. And then when they get so far ahead, a next group will step off. And when they get so far ahead, the next group will step off. And so forth. A.P. Hill was supposed to be part of that enchant movement. 3rd Corps. There's a reason 3rd Corps is not mentioned on that one slide when I was introducing our characters. It's a beautiful attack. Beautiful. It will go without fail. You have to understand Longstreet, when it comes to military movements, is one of the best in the Civil War. I'm not talking about just in the Confederacy. I'm talking about one of the best generals in the entire Civil War. Hands down, James Longstreet. And this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with Dan Sickles against Sam Hood. Now, Sam Hood is the first in line. And he will move all the way down, and about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, after being rerouted, because up on Little Round Top are flag bearers. Have you ever been to the beach and you see the lifeguards waving flags? It's like Morse code. it tells a message. If you can decode it, it's saying what's happening because they're so far apart. That flag waving that lifeguards use at beaches stems from the Civil War. It's the same thing. So up on Little Round Top, you had the Union flag, and they were moving. They were telling me, oh, there is Confederates coming on Seminary Bridge, and they're coming out, and they're coming down towards Little Round Top. There are no troops on Little Round Top. Nothing, it's bare. But nobody knew that Meade didn't want Little Round Top. It was not in his plans. His plan was take Devil's Den, wrap up, go to the peach orchard, go to the wheat field, and then go towards the angle, which would be the hub of July 3rd. Not Little Round Top. They didn't want it. There was no reason that happened. But as Longstreet gets down there, he sees that his troops have stopped marching. And he goes, what's wrong? And he goes, there's troops up on that little rocky hill. So Longstreet says, yeah, okay. So he has to move them back around, and he has to go deeper into the woods to try to conceal themselves. And he breaks back to General Lee. He goes, there's troops up on Little Round Top. If I don't take that hill, and I move from Devil's Den up, those Union troops are now in my rear. They're going to come down and hit me. They're going to fight me. I'm gone. I'm done. So he has to take that little rocky hill. There weren't a lot of troops on that little rocky hill, but Longstreet didn't know that. But they quickly reinforced it. And then he's looking out, and he says to Hood, he goes, do you see that right angle? And Hood says, yep. He goes, break it. And Hood goes, okay. So he strikes for Devil's Den. He swings in, he strikes for Devil's Den, only for one of his brigades to get, his regiments to get lost. The 15th Alabama, it gets lost. They don't know where they're going, because the Vanderbilt nobody knows where he's at. So they get lost, way over here, way out here. They end up going up Big Round Top and have to come down. They attack Devil's Den, and they take it. And from there, they can just pop shot up on Little Round Top. With good cover from all those rocks, okay? And Dan Sickles is now running around like a chicken with his head cut off because he has no one to defend him. His troops are being attacked, and there's no help because he moved them a mile out. So Hancock sees this, and he's like, they're gonna come back, don't worry. And then Meade runs over and he says, you need to go send troops over to help Dan Sickles. He goes, no, I like what's happening. No, I like this. I like this. And Meade says, go defend Dan Sickles. Hancock says, fine, I'll go defend Dan Sickles. Only to go into the wheat field. Longstreet's Confederates will meet in the wheat field against Hancock's 2nd Corps. 6,100 Americans will die in a tiny wheat field. It will be exchanged 5 times amongst the Union and Confederates. Eventually, Longstreet will take the wheat field. So now he's gained 2 of his objectives. He needed Devil's Den and the wheat field, right? Coming down here, out here sits a beautiful peach orchard. Beautiful peach orchard. And Longstreet's division under Lafayette and Laws attacks that peach orchard and drives them back. He takes the peach orchard, that's number 3. He's on his way. Now he needs Cemetery Bridge. But he is stopped. He can't go on anymore. Hancock is looking around for anybody that's left. Anybody. And he comes up on a regiment. One lone regiment. The 1st Minnesota. That's all that's left. he says, "You see them?" And they go, "Yup." And he goes, "Take them." And he goes, "Okay." The first Minnesota runs out. By the time it's done, they do push back the Confederates. Wilcox's, Floridians, and Anderson's, Georgians. He pushes them back. And they take 60% casualty loss. Do you know what would happen today in a battle if a commander takes a 1% casualty rate? Do you know what happens? You're fired. You're demoted. These guys are taking 50 and 60% casualty rates in regiments, in divisions. That's a lot of death. A lot of death. And that's just on July 2nd. Longstreet will go for Little Round Top 3 times. He'll go up the one side, he can't get there. He'll go up the center side, can't get there. He has 1 brigade left under Warford. And he goes, "I'm personally leading you up the left side of Little Round Top." Now, General Lee has already lost Jackson 2 months prior. He can't afford to lose Longstreet. And he tells Longstreet, "Do not advance with your army. You hang back." Longstreet goes, "I hear you loud and clear, but I don't have to listen to you." And he doesn't. He disobeys his commanding general, and he will charge Little Round Top. He'll get to the very top, but then he's pushed back. There are just too many Union soldiers for him to advance any further. Now, on the backside of Little Round Top, there's an extraordinary event happening. Lawrence Chamberlain and the 20th Maine, a regiment that hasn't seen much action here and there. They are on the very, very extreme left flank of the Army of the Potomac. If they run, that whole fish hook caves. It's done. And now they are being, in their front, they are being assaulted by the 15th Alabama. Yes, they finally find their way back. They kind of came back to the land of the living. 5 times the 15th Alabama will charge the 20th Maine. 5 times the 15th Alabama is repulsed. Going into that battle, the 20th Maine only had 60 rounds of ammunition. It sounds like a lot, but it's not. They run out of ammunition. So Chamberlain makes this daring move. He brings his line together and he says, "Get your bayonets ready. We're going to charge them. We can't allow them to go by us. What are you going to do to stop them?" Because they're obviously not stopping. They're regrouping. Do you remember when I said, when you go up the hill, you don't ever want to retreat? The 15th Alabama, there's a reason I did say that. The 15th Alabama should never have retreated. They should have laid down, they should have regrouped themselves, and kept going. They would have succeeded. But they went back down, and then they had to go right back up to this stuff, through the stuff that they just retreated from. They wore themselves out. Chamberlain, all the while, has the high ground. Now he's going to make a charge downhill. Who has prime real estate? The 20th Maine. Chamberlain does. That's why he succeeds. He takes his regiment and he swings like a door. On the other side of the 20th Maine is the 83rd Pennsylvania. They are hoping that with this they can close and capture the Confederate soldiers with the 83rd Pennsylvania. And they do. It is one of the bravest charges in all of Gettysburg. That's why Little Round Top is one of the most visited places today. Sickles is all because of a stupid blunder. And he didn't know about the rolling hills of Pennsylvania. Remember when I said Lee's plan was to also attack Hope's Hill? So the last Union Corps finally arrives, Slocum, 12th Corps, finally gets there, and he is in place along with Wadsworth up on Hope's Hill to help reinforce that hill. And you'll finally at dark, because when you go up against Union troops, what color are they wearing? They're wearing navy blue uniforms. You can't see them when it's dark out, because you thought it was great to attack them when it was dark. Blunder number 2 for the Army of Northern Virginia. The Union Army has 1. Army of Northern Virginia has 2. On Hope's Hill, you will send in 1 division, Johnson's division. Take that hill. That's it. You think he can take that hill with 1 division against a whole Army of the Potomac Corps? No. So Johnson says, I've tried and I've tried and I've tried and I've tried. Couldn't do it. So he finally stops. He goes, I'll pick it up again tomorrow. That's Ewell's contribution to July 2nd. Now, at the end of July 2nd, it is clear it is a Confederate victory. Longstreet captured 3 of his 4 objectives, right? It's clear, the Confederates won, right? Who thinks the Confederates won on July 2nd? Raise your hand. The Union held out. You can only win if you drive your opponent off the battlefield. The Union did not run. They stayed. Yeah, they're weakened. Yeah, there's a lot of bloodshed. 3rd Corps ceased to exist after this. 1st Corps is done. There's no 1st Corps either. So what do we have left? We have what's left of 2nd Corps after July 2nd. We have what's left of 5th Corps. We have 6th Corps in reserve. We have 11th Corps, and we have 12th Corps. Out of 7 Corps, we have 5 left. Lee started with 77,000 men. He took 50% casualty rates in his 1st Corps in both divisions on July 2nd. On July 1st, A.P. Hill took a lot of hits attacking McPherson's Ridge. He lost prisoners. The Union took a lot of his troops prisoners of war. Ewell's 2nd Corps took a lot of hits, and his men were exhausted already from their long march back. So now we come to July 3rd. Longstreet's sitting there saying, now what? What are you going to do? He is so defiant to General Lee. He's so upset because he just sacrificed a lot of his men for what? Nothing. Nothing. So General Lee says, no, they reinforced their right and left flank. Longstreet goes, duh. He goes, they're weak in the center though. They had to take troops from somewhere. He goes, they took troops from the center to reinforce their flanks. Because if we strike through the center, they'll break. Well then, Longstreet says, yeah, but they have interior lines. That fish hook was made for a reason. You can move troops in and out of that fish hook wherever you need them very quickly. It was where the Confederates are miles. They can't move troops that fast. Longstreet tells Lee this. Lee says, we're going for the center whether you like it or not, and you're leading that charge. Longstreet says, yeah, I don't know if you know this, but yesterday I took 50% casualty rates in Hood's division and McLaws's division. I have Pickett. And he only came up last night, late last night. And he goes, I'll give you 2 other ones. And he goes, I'll give you Pettigrew now, because Harry Heath was injured. I'll give you Pettigrew, and I'll give you Isaac Trimble, 3rd Corps. Longstreet goes, I don't know them. I don't know those soldiers. They're not going to listen to me. He goes, that's what you got. You got 15,000 soldiers at your dispense. Take that ridge. He goes, yeah, but they got to stonewall it, like we did in Fredericksburg. And it's true. In Fredericksburg, it was a bloodbath for the Union Army, all because they had a stone wall that they could hide behind. Now the Union has that. Longstreet goes, and that's Hancock over there. He loves to fight. He's Irish and he's Philadelphian. He ain't gonna run. Really, honest to God, he's not gonna run. And he says, I don't care. You're gonna take that ridge and you're gonna stop, or I'm gonna have you court-martialed. Longstreet says, all right, but it's gonna be the end of your army. And it is. But Ewell says, have no fear. I'll try for Culp's Hill again. Johnston, take Culp's Hill again. He's like, seriously? Seriously? Nobody else is going to help me? Nope. The rest of 2nd Corps sits, does nothing. Johnson tries. Johnson's repulsed. And therefore, Culp's Hill, that's the end of the fighting for 2nd Corps. They don't do anything the rest of the day. A.P. Hill sits and twiddles his thumbs the rest of the battle. And he sits there and talks to General Lee. He doesn't do anything either. These are our characters for July 3rd. You have Hancock, you have Longstreet, and now you have Major General George Pickett, Division Commander for under Longstreet. Funny, I didn't mention anybody else for the Union Army either. There is nobody else. It's Hancock. That's it. Hancock. We're going to see how well he fares out. As you can tell, I do have scenes from the movie Gettysburg because they depicted what happened, okay? 50 miles that way, starting at 12 o'clock in the afternoon on July 3rd. If you're sitting here in Columbia, you can hear the artillery. The largest land barrage in northern soil ever. And it lasts an hour and a half. A total of 147 artillery pieces, dueling back and forth. The Confederates aren't doing much of anything. They're not really damaging anything. It rained the night before. Their fuses are wet. They don't have a lot of ammunition because their chief artillerists sent their trains further south. They can't resupply their caissons. The Union, on the other hand, they saved a lot of theirs and are hitting their targets. About 2 o'clock, the artillerist for James Longstreet comes up and says, you need to start or I won't have enough ammunition to support your infantry. Longstreet really doesn't want to do it. Really doesn't want to do it. So he sets his lines, his division under Pickett, he tells Pickett, Kemper, you're gonna have Kemper over here, you're gonna have Gardner over here, and you're gonna have Armistead in support. Over here, you have Pettigrew and Trimble. 1 and then 1. Go for it. Moving ground. How do you think that fares out for the Confederate soldiers? Not well at all. Do you know how long Pickett's charge lasts? Can you take a guess? 30 minutes. 30 minutes to cover ground. A mile of open ground. They do storm the stone wall. They get over it. But they can't do anything else because Hancock just refuses to leave. His men retreat back a little bit to regroup themselves, and they run right into him. Hand-to-hand combat. Can you imagine being right up on somebody and fighting them? It's easy when you're far away and you can shoot somebody to beat right up on them and fight them. Hancock will be wounded. He's on his horse, and he'll be shot right here in the pelvic area. And he thinks the Confederates are running out of bullets. They're hitting me with shrapnel. Shrapnel is anything you can fire out of a weapon. He has a nail in his groin. He reaches in there and pulls it out. That's how he knows what it is. But it was a saddle nail. The bullet went through his saddle and into his groin after the nail went in. And he says, do not move me from this field of battle until this engagement is over. And he lays there, and he's commanding troops from the ground. And they finally take him. They succeed. The battle is over. The last Confederate flag goes down. The Battle of Gettysburg is over. The numbers are staggering. Longstreet will take 50% casualty rates in all three of his divisions at Gettysburg. His one corps of 20,000 soldiers dwindles to about 5,000 that's left. Buell, they're still licking their wounds from their long march. And now they have to regroup after July 1st. A.P. Hill, what nobody realized and why he didn't go into battle, he was fighting kidney disease. His kidneys were failing. He will eventually die. But they are repulsed. And Gettysburg loves to say that this was General Lee's first loss. Why is that a lie? Why is that a lie? He was here earlier. Why is that a lie?
He lost across the street, across the road.
You
the
were here
river.
too, yeah. The bridge. The minute you engage troops into something, doesn't matter if it's a skirmish or if it's a battle, the minute you engage in a conflict, that loser lost. That's a defeat. I got to present my skirmish that turned the tide over at Gettysburg back in March. And I love to watch the eyes of them people when I said General Lee's first loss was here on the banks of the Susquehanna River. Oh, that was fantastic to see. I love that. Because it is. This is his second loss. It's more of a defeat. This hurt him. Never again will General Lee ever go on the offensive after Gettysburg. He has 2 years of war left. Never again will General Lee see 77,000 troops in his Army of Northern Virginia after Gettysburg. General Lee, this hurt him. This was his downfall. This was the end. This was the beginning of the end of the Army of Northern Virginia. This happened 50 miles that way. But it started right here. Because had they gotten over that bridge, Gettysburg would never have happened. They would have had a battle here, eventually, on Northern soil, and they would have won, because they would have had the ground of their choosing, not on the ground of Hancock's choosing. So in the end, what happened here was Lee's downfall, because then he was playing catch up the entire time. So, I always like, when I talk about the burning of the bridge, I love to include Gettysburg, because A, that would have happened if it wasn't for what happened right here. Columbia decided to be General Lee's downfall. Let's face it, we are stubborn. It wasn't anybody, it wasn't the Army of the Potomac, it wasn't Grant, it wasn't, they played a part, don't get me wrong. But it's what happened here that just blew everything up for General Lee. Because he didn't have a plan B, a plan C, a plan D. He had plan A, and plan A failed. He didn't have anything for backup. And had he listened to one person, that would never have happened. But history plays out for a reason. And that is the entire Gettysburg campaign in a nutshell. Again, it was a nutshell. That might have taken an hour and 10 minutes, but it was a nutshell. I could really talk more and get in depth in the Battle of Gettysburg. But